What if I told you the question isn't whether XRP will still exist in 2026, but whether you'll understand what's happening around it when everyone else finally starts paying attention? Because right now, most people are asking the wrong question. They're asking how high the price can go when the breakout will happen, or whether it's too late. But the real question, the one nobody wants to sit with, is this. What happens if the financial system quietly moves forward while most people are still waiting for permission to notice? Think about this for a second. Every major shift in finance looked obvious only after it was already underway. Online banking, mobile payments, contactless cards, none of those felt urgent until suddenly they were everywhere. And the people who adapted early didn't feel smarter, they just weren't surprised. That's the lens you need right now. Because when people throw around phrases like, you need 1000 XRP, what they're really expressing isn't a number, it's anxiety. It's the fear of missing positioning before understanding catches up to reality, and fear spreads faster than facts. So let's slow this down. This is not financial advice. This is not a promise. This is not a prediction. This is a conversation about systems, behavior, and timing, because those are the things that actually shape outcomes. If you're watching this, do me a favor right now. Hit the like button. Not because you agree with everything I say, but because you value calm explanations in a space that's usually driven by noise. And if you want more long-form grounded discussions like this, subscribe. That support matters more than hype ever will. Now let's get into it. XRP exists in a category that most people don't fully understand. It's not trying to replace banks overnight. It's not trying to burn down the financial system and rebuild it from scratch. It's trying to work with the infrastructure that already moves trillions of dollars every single day. And that choice changes everything. Financial systems don't pivot fast. They don't move because something is exciting. They move because something is reliable, compliant, and efficient over time. And that timeline doesn't align with social media cycles. Most retail participants experience markets emotionally. They see price action and assume that's the full story, but price is just the surface. Underneath it are liquidity requirements, settlement delays, counterparty risk, regulatory constraints, and operational costs that most people never see. That's where XRP lives, under the surface. When people say you'll be left behind, the dangerous part isn't the phrase, it's how people interpret it. They hear urgency and translate it into pressure. Pressure leads to impulsive decisions. Impulsive decisions are what markets feed on, but being left behind doesn't mean missing a price spike. It means failing to understand a structural shift until it's no longer optional. Look at how fast expectations change once infrastructure is in place. When mobile payments became standard, cash didn't disappear overnight. But behavior did change. People who refused to adapt didn't lose money instantly. They lost convenience, access, and eventually relevance. Financial evolution doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It arrives quietly, then suddenly feels unavoidable. XRP's design is built around one simple idea: moving value efficiently between systems that don't naturally talk to each other. That may not sound exciting, but it's one of the hardest problems in finance to solve. Most cryptocurrencies focus on being self-contained ecosystems. XRP focuses on being a bridge. Bridges don't get attention unless they collapse, but they're critical when traffic increases. Now here's where the number 1000 starts to matter, not as a requirement, but as a psychological threshold. Humans think in round numbers. They anchor to milestones. 1000 feels meaningful because it sounds complete. It feels like preparation, but preparation isn't about quantity, it's about comprehension. The real risk in 2026 isn't that someone has too little XRP. It's that they don't understand why certain systems are being adopted while others fade into irrelevance. Markets reward people who understand context, not people who chase certainty. And certainty is exactly what no one can offer you. What we can observe is behavior. Institutions don't rush. They test. They pilot. They integrate slowly. They care about uptime, predictability, and compliance far more than price appreciation. That's why progress often looks invisible until it isn't. Another uncomfortable truth is that most wealth transfers don't happen during explosive moments. They happen during long periods of boredom. When attention leaves, when narratives cool off, when conviction is quietly built or abandoned. That's where we are now. XRP has already survived cycles that erased thousands of projects. Not because it was loud, but because it kept functioning. Networks that keep working tend to outlast narratives. And here's something people rarely talk about. Regulation doesn't just restrict, it also clarifies. Clarity invites participation. Participation brings liquidity. Liquidity enables scale. This process is slow, frustrating, and deeply unsexy, but it's how real systems grow. If you're expecting fireworks tomorrow, you'll probably be disappointed. If you're paying attention to infrastructure trends over years, you might not be. The phrase "you will be left behind" shouldn't scare you into action. It should challenge you to learn, because knowledge compounds faster than price ever will. Ask yourself this: if digital settlement becomes faster, cheaper, and more standardized globally, what happens to systems that can't adapt? They don't disappear instantly, but they lose relevance. XRP is positioned around adaptation, not disruption for the sake of disruption. That's why its story doesn't fit neatly into hype-driven narratives. Another thing people miss is that adoption doesn't need everyone. It needs enough institutions, enough corridors, enough volume. At that point, the system speaks for itself. If you're still watching, that tells me you're not here for a quick answer. You're here to understand the bigger picture, and that already puts you ahead of most participants. This space rewards patience more often than brilliance. It punishes emotional certainty more than ignorance. And the hardest part is accepting that you don't need to do anything dramatic right now. You need to stay informed, grounded, and aware of how narratives manipulate emotion, because hype always peaks before understanding and collapses shortly after. What lasts is structure. If this conversation is helping you think more clearly, tap the like button. It tells the platform this kind of content matters. And if you want the continuation of this breakdown, how 2026 fits into long-term positioning, make sure you're subscribed, because this story doesn't end here. This is just the setup. And what comes next is where most people stop paying attention. Right before things actually get interesting. Because once attention fades, once headlines move on, and once the crowd stops refreshing charts every 5 minutes, that's when systems start revealing their real direction. Silence in markets isn't emptiness, it's space. And space is where long-term positioning happens without noise. Here's something most people never hear. Markets don't move when everyone agrees. They move when expectations quietly shift. By the time consensus forms, the adjustment has already occurred. That's why the idea of needing a certain amount of XRP by 2026 isn't about fear of missing out on a spike. It's about whether you understand what kind of world is being built in the background while most people are distracted by surface level movement. Financial infrastructure evolves the same way cities do. First come the roads, then the utilities, then the traffic, and only after that do people notice how much has changed. No one celebrates a sewer system, but without it, nothing else works. XRP's role fits squarely into that uncelebrated but essential layer. It's not designed to impress you on a chart. It's designed to reduce friction in a system that currently bleeds time and money every time value crosses borders. Ask yourself this honestly: do global payments feel efficient today? Are they instant, cheap, transparent, and reliable across every corridor? Or do they still rely on outdated processes, delays, and intermediaries? That gap is the opportunity, not for hype, but for relevance. One of the reasons people struggle with this concept is because we've been trained to equate innovation with visibility. If something isn't loud, viral, or constantly trending, we assume it isn't happening. But infrastructure doesn't advertise itself, it integrates. When institutions evaluate technology, they don't ask, "Is this exciting?" They ask, "Will this still work 5 years from now under regulatory pressure?" That question eliminates most options immediately. XRP has already lived under pressure. That matters more than many people realize. Another critical piece is trust. Not emotional trust, but operational trust.